Happy Sunday, Mets and overall baseball fans. Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest post-game show here on WardyNYM. This is your place to be for consistent Mets coverage, covering basically every single Mets game throughout the normal 162 calendar year. We're already getting the year started here in spring training as the Mets in their third game of spring matched up at home against the Washington Nationals and come out with a victory. 6-3 is your final. I mean, this was a snooze fest in the first half of the game offensively for the Mets, but in the second half, thanks to the kids led by Ronnie Mauricio, who I'm so excited to get into. Yeah, it was a fun game for the Metropolitans as Mad Max made his spring training debut. We're going to be deep diving everything you need to know about the game, sharing our raw reactions for everyone in the live chat that just witnessed the game, just like I did, and plenty more. So make sure to smash that like and subscribe on to everyone that's first chiming in. Shout out to my members, all my OG followers here on the channel, and new followers. Thank you guys so much for being in here. And again, help us get to 25K subs for your next short-term goal as always. But of course, I have to let you all know that today's show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. So make sure you head over to betonline.ag using promo code Bleav at BLEAV. That way you get yourself a 50% off welcome bonus. BetOnline, it's where the games begin. And now, folks, gentlemen, ladies, let's officially let the show begin. Happy Sunday, guys. That was a fun game, wasn't it? I mean, seriously, the first half, I'm like, okay, when are we going to get a hit? The Mark Hanna got an Oppo double, and then it unraveled from there, which is very nice. Hoagie Vogie, Mr. Vogelback, bringing Vogelback. We have merch at the Bleav shop that you can see in the link down below. If you want to bring Vogelback shirt yourself, we have that because Vogie's nice, and he's off to a red-hot start this spring. Back-to-back games with an RBI at least. So I'm excited to get into this game to break it down a little bit. Again, appreciate everyone being in here. Lisa, Edward, hope you guys are having a great weekend. Kevin, all my great members. Darren, who I'm sure is in here as well. Dominic, all you guys. Mets Nation, Elliot, Joey, great member. All you guys, if I miss anyone's names, I do apologize. But like I said, I'm going to deep dive all the nitty and gritty as I always do. I take notes throughout the Mets game, so we'll do that in order from inning 1 to all the way to the 9th inning, and then we'll break down key highlights from this game along with what you're actually watching right now. Like, what are the biggest takeaways from this matchup? Again, it's only game 3 spring training. I know it's nothing to get too harped on, but can we just take a moment to appreciate Ronnie Mauricio going out there, the kid, the guy who just won the MVP of the Dominican Winter League this past year, and he goes out, again, juiced up over 200 pounds now, a lot of power behind that swing, and absolutely rips a 110-mile-per-hour piss missile to right for 450 effing feet. I even posted a short of it on my YouTube channel right before we went live here because that thing was a thing of beauty. My goodness, my God, my gracious, that was nice. So that is definitely the highlight. That's what gets him the number 1 star. But again, some nice outings. Really impressed with the relievers today, too. I'm excited to get into them a little bit, especially Brooks really. But my number 1 guy today, it has to be John Curtis. But again, let's go in order here. Then I'll get to your comments afterwards, all that fun stuff. Again, shout out all you guys for being in here. Greatly appreciate for Game 3 post-game show here in WardyNYM as we'll be covering the Mets all spring and all season long. So the game starts in the first. We see Mad Max is back on the bump, right? And he starts things off in a normal Mad Max fashion with a simple 1-2-3 inning against his former club, now foe, including 2 strikeouts. When we get to the second inning, again, the Mets don't get a hit through the first 4 innings. So we're just talking about pitching and the Nationals offense because in the second, Matt Adams, the first baseman, gets himself a single that, again, what we saw a lot in yesterday's game in the Mets' favor, now not in their favor at times, is not having to shift. Can't have third guys along the first base area, right? Can't have a guy in the shallow outfield there to help you out. No, that's going to lead to Adams getting a pulled single from the left side to the right side there around first base. And then Chavis, who's coming from the Pittsburgh Pirates this past year, rips himself a single too. And then Call in the outfield for the Nationals rips an RBI double. And it was a missed dive by Tommy Pham there around center right. Again, Pham is not a guy that's expected to play anytime at center field this year. The only way I really see that happens is if guys are coming off of serious injury and there's no one available. Because Pham, last time he played center field was 2021 for the Padres, only had 11 games. They just gave him a rep there, obviously, to see how he would look. Didn't look great. Not surprised there because he plays below average corner outfield defense as is at this point in his career. But with Brendan Nimmo not playing a game until the end of the week to really start things off because he's taking things slow this spring. He doesn't want to risk any injuries. He's fully healthy, but he's not going to be playing every day, and that's perfectly fine. We need him playing every day when it matters most. So in the meantime, we're going to see some Tommy Phams. We're going to see some Alex Ramirez's there in the outfield this spring for sure. No less, the Nationals get the early lead because of that, but afterwards, Mad Max, who's already frustrated, strikes out 3 batters in a row to get out of the jam to only give up that 1 run there in the 2nd inning. Then we head to the 3rd. Mad Max's day is done by that point. 2 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, 5 strikeouts, and 43 pitches. Again, Max, just happy to see him out there. He looks like he's locked and loaded and ready to go for the season, as we all are, right? We're all chomping at the bit to see some regular season Mets baseball as soon as humanly possible. But we get to the 3rd. Brooks Raley, who was the coveted southpaw that the Mets acquired in a trade throughout the offseason with the Tampa Bay Rays, had a great year with Tampa. A guy, you look at his advanced numbers, absolutely filthy, and he was filthy in his Mets debut. He got 2 outs, had a hit by pitch that hit the foot of Joey Meneses, the guy who really looked good as a veteran rookie. Veteran meaning that he's already, in the latter, I think he's in his late 20s, if not 30 already. But Meneses, when brought up, looked really good for the Nationals last year. Got a hit by pitch there, and then there was a ground out. So again, really, that's why he's in my top 5. Tommy Hunter had the same line as Raley, but I felt like I had to put Raley in there because it was his Mets debut. So that was it was really a coin flip for my top 5 there. But happy to have Raley, and he looked very strong today because in the 4th, Tommy Hunter comes in, the veteran right-hander for the Mets. He's been with them the past couple of years, looked really good last year. 1 called a bomb, had a 1-2-3 inning, including 1 strikeout, just like Brooks Raley there. Then we get to the bottom of the 4th. The Mets finally get their offense started. Mark Canha, as we mentioned already, with an opposite field double. Lindor with a walk after it, and then Hoagie Vogie himself. Yes, Mr. Vogelback gets himself a 2-run, 2 RBI double to give the Mets the lead 2-1. Pham with a walk, Narvaez with a walk, and Mark Vientos with bases loaded and 2 outs decides to take a called strike 3 instead of swinging. Marky V would make up for this later in the game, and that almost had him in my top 5. But again, Mark, it's as simple as this, bud. It's spring training. You're trying to show out. You're trying to impress. I think we would all rather see you swing and miss in that scenario versus not swinging at all. And again, he made up for it later in the game, and I give him credit for that, however. So Mets lead bases loaded, stranded there. Won't be the last time we say that this year, right? We then head to the 5th inning, and Eliezer Hernandez, who was the guy who's deemed as a potential, long reliever for the Mets, a guy that could be a spot starter if need be, was acquired from the Marlins along with Jeff Brigham for the Mets' first trade of the offseason, and including a player to be named later, which was Jake Mangum, who looked great in the outfield against the Mets yesterday. Why? Because, of course, he did. No less, we have Eliezer in here, and he didn't look great. I'm going to be blunt. I mean, in the 5th inning, CJ Abrams got an RBI sac fly thanks to a walk and a stolen base prior. Garcia with a single, Meneses with a single. Then in the 6th inning, Call gets himself a double. This is what Eliezer out for his 2nd inning of the day. Hill with a walk, and then Timmy LaCastro ends the inning not surrendering any more runs, thankfully, with a diving catch there in left field. Timmy, not only the speedster who can steal bags like crazy, just a great personality overall. Always been a fan of LaCastro's, even when he was a Yankee. I'm happy to have him in the Mets organization. Again, a guy that's going to be your equivalent to a Terrence Gore, if you will, right? If he's with the Mets down the stretch, it'll be basically be that speed demon trying to steal first to second, which he surely will. Not only with pitchers being limited with how many times they can throw to first base, but also because of the fact that he's a speed demon, and in large bags, those couple inches are going to make a difference. No pun or joke said here, but all seriousness, Timmy, happy to have him on the Mets. He made a nice grab there. We get to the 7th, Coonrod, Sam Coonrod, who was a late acquisition for the Mets. Again, had some time with the Phillies, has some nasty stuff, high velo. He came in and he looked pretty solid in his lone inning for the Mets there in the 7th. Baker with a single, and if you're wondering who Baker is, that is Dusty Baker's son at the age of 24. The former Nationals manager's kid has been in the Nationals organization over the past year at least, and he gets himself a base knock and a stolen base, but that leads to nothing. Then we head to the bottom of the 7th. Tommy Pham with a walk, Brett Beatty with his first at-bat of the day, and the first time this spring that he has not gone on base. He struck out on 3 pitches. I do Bleav it was lefty on lefty. Correct me if I'm wrong, but still not terrible. Beatty gets strikes out there. And then Mark Vientos, again, bouncing back here. You see Pham has Alex Ramirez, a Mets top outfield prospect, running for him, and Mark Vientos drives him in with an RBI double to increase the Mets lead. Then after that, Luis Gourmet gets his first at bat of the day and gets an infield single because it hits off of the foot of the pitcher. If I'm correct on that, again, I could be wrong, but I know it hit someone, and then he bolts and got to first in time. But that would do it for the inning. Then we get to the 8th inning, and this is what I was really impressed with, and this is what I really like. John Curtis, for people, Mets fans especially, that do not know who he is, the Mets signed him a year ago, last year, 2021-2022 offseason, right, with the Mets. Billy Epler, that was one of the first moves he did. And you were wondering, why did the Mets sign this guy? Because he wasn't going to play this past year dealing with Tommy John. But now he's back, he's fresh, and he looked damn good. He was touching 96 on the gun, had some nice movement, and he had a beautiful 1-2-3 inning, including 2 strikeouts and a ground out. John Curtis, we're happy to have him. He's one of multiple guys that'll be competing for the Mets bullpen this year, and he's probably one of, if not the most favored guy that's not a lock yet, if that makes sense. John Curtis looks good, and hopefully we see more of that throughout the spring training. Again, from Jacob Resnick, especially of SNY, shout out to him. He said, touch 96 with Rise and had a pair of whiffs of his slider. Again, a guy to keep an eye on this spring for sure, looking to crack that bullpen. We then head to the bottom of the 8th inning, and this is where the hype began heading into today's show, because it's a Sunday day game. It's only 4 or 4 p.m. Eastern time today. That's nice. I can get used to the times not being too bad, not too shabby, right? Mauricio, again, rips that solo bomb 1-for-1 on the day with the 450-foot nuke on a 110-mile-per-hour exit below. My goodness, my God, my gracious. Ronnie Mauricio, let's see more of that. That's awesome. Again, the glove, where is he going to play defensively? Those are all the big questions. But the bat to ball skills seems to be there. And again, if he has a great spring, he could find himself starting in potentially AAA even this year after being in AA with Binghamton Rumble Ponies this past season. Then we get to the 9th. Again, there was a lot of things going on with Alvarez, a reliever, who's obviously not going to be starting with the Mets this year in the bullpen. It was a little shaky. There was a situation where a runner ended up scoring because of, a little infield miscue there. No less Kevin Parada, who then came in and got in at bat or two. He then threw out the runner trying to steal second to end the game. And the Mets win a final score of 6-3. And the game only lasted 2 hours and 28 minutes. So on average, throughout 20 or so spring training games that we've seen this spring, games are ending on average a half hour early. Sorry, guys, that was weird. I had the sensation that I had to sneeze, but then as I breathed in to try to sneeze, it wasn't allowing me. So that's weird. Either way, again, games are going faster, and I said this yesterday, and I feel like I say it a lot this spring. As a viewer at home, I like it. I like the fast pace. That's entertaining for baseball. There's not much lollygagging going around, right? Because games can definitely be a drag at times. So from the viewing pleasure, I enjoy that. It's attending games where I don't know how I'm going to feel as someone who likes that true baseball ballpark experience, to experience everything, not only the game itself, but also, experience everything that the ballpark has to offer. That's really the only gripe I'm going to probably give on it, but so far I'm not against it from the viewing pleasure that I sit in my chair at home. But now let's get into, what's standing out to me again in this game? Warriors top 5, Mauricio, number 1 star, 1-for-1 with the home run. DJ Stewart, who came in to pinch hit, will be a 4th outfielder option playing in AAA for the Mets this year. Had some time with the Baltimore Orioles and Buck Showalter back in the day. Stewart, no less, 2 RBIs, 1-for-1. Nice to see. Vogelback, 1-for-3 with a double and those 2 RBIs. John Curtis, my number 4 star. Again, 1-2-3, 8th inning, including 2 strikeouts. And Brooks Raley or Tommy Hunter, take your pick for the 5th guy. I went with Raley just because it was his Mets debut. Nothing more, nothing less. Nice to see an effective southpaw in the Mets bullpen. Hopefully we see a lot of productivity and consistency from him throughout the year, because the Mets are going to call upon him quite a bit, and for good reason, after what was a really strong, a stellar 2022 campaign, his lone year with the Tampa Bay Rays. So again, very happy with what I saw on that front. And as a whole, looking through the batting order, Jeff McNeil was 0-for-3 today. Luis Gourmet 1-for-1, as we discussed. Mark Canha 1-for-3 with the double and a run score. Tim LaCastro 0-for-1, but he had that nice snag. Francisco Lindor 0-for-2 with a run, and he had himself a walk. Ryan Mauricio 1-for-1 with the home run, the RBI, the run scored. Vogie, just discussed him, 1-for-3 with the double and the 2 RBIs. Oh yeah, Abraham Almonte, who I forgot to mention, did have himself a single today. Looked good yesterday, and then Mets went over the Marlins. Looked good again today. 1-for-1 DHing there, pinching for Vogelback in the 9th or so. Eduardo Escobar 0-for-3. Kevin Parada 0-for-1. Tommy Pham 0-for-1 with 2 walks. Alex Ramirez 1-for-1 with 2 runs scored. I don't know if I mentioned Ramirez either, but again, another kid who is looking like he's going to be the future of the Mets at the center field position long term. Shifting Brendan Nimmo to left field more than likely. Ramirez has a lot of raw power. He's finally getting in that top 100 among prospect rankings, has uber amount of potential, and a guy that I'm unbelievably high on. And I have more excitement about Ramirez than I feel like than what I did for Pete Crow Armstrong, who's doing great in his own right now in the Chicago Cubs organization the past couple of years. But Ramirez, keep an eye on him. He's a speed demon, and he is going to exemplify a lot of raw ability and a lot of fun ability that you're going to see there in spring for the Mets this year. Then let's go forward. Omar Narvaez went 0 for 1 today with a walk. And let's speak about Omar Narvaez for a second, if it's okay with you guys right now, because Omar Narvaez was interviewed today by Steve Gelbs, and you saw already the relationship that he has built with Mets top prospect, the best baseball prospect in baseball right now, Francisco Alvarez. I mean, one of the main factors why the Mets signed Narvaez is not only because he's a veteran catcher that should still be an upgrade to a certain degree over James McCann, but two, he's Venezuelan. So he will be able to build that comfortable relationship, having the same intellect right away with someone like Francisco Alvarez. And it was full-fledged. I mean, you saw Alvarez throwing seeds on him. Then he yells and he's talking to Alvarez, and he tells him to come over here, has his arm around him. And then Steve asks Alvarez, is it like appropriate? Is it right for a youngster to be throwing seeds at a veteran? And Alvarez said no, but he was laughing. So I just love that relationship that they're building. Again, Alvarez is going to need as much help as possible as a youngster gain his MLB career started. Yes, the bat to ball skills are there. He's literally looking like one of the most dynamic offensive catchers that we've seen in years. However, that defensive game still needs some work, and Narvaez hopefully is doing his best influence on him in that category, especially. So really, really like the relationship that they're building. And this is exactly what Billy Epler had in mind when he first signed him to that multi-year deal. So for people wondering, why did they get Narvaez? Why not just start Alvarez at the jump? One, you don't want to rush Alvarez because he's supposed to be your future at catcher for hopefully a decade plus. And two, it's nice to have a veteran like Narvaez that can help kind of ease things in for Francisco, make him feel more comfortable than ever. And one more thing I want to say here on Alvarez is that he spent the entire offseason working heavily on his English, something that he was not great at this past year, but his night and day already looking so much better. And while players don't necessarily need to know English, obviously, to be an effective player, I mean, Kodai Senga is starting to know some words, right? But he knows very little of the English language still. It's important for someone like Alvarez, especially, to have the knowledge of knowing and receiving what the guy's saying, because he's dealing with the type of pitchers that the Mets have, especially in Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Jose Quintana, everyone and their mother. It's important to build these relationships and know that you're on the same page, because you don't have much time. As Anthony Recker, my co-host of the Bleav in Queens podcast, will famously say, that type of intellect and having that connection and that relationship is absolutely key. That is vital to being an effective catcher, especially at the MLB level. And I'm happy to see Alvarez, again, did his absolute best throughout the offseason. I'm sure his English will continue to get better throughout the year. And this is not a slight on players that don't speak English much at all. I'm just saying it helps give you an advantage, especially a guy like Alvarez, who surely needs to have conversations every single second that he is playing out there at the catching position. So now to expand a little bit beyond what we have said here. Again, those are my top 5 for sure. Very happy with what I saw from the Mets today. Again, a slow offense, a slow roll for the most part. And again, shout out to everyone that's first chiming in the live stream. If you are, make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. If you're watching on replay, make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. And let me know your thoughts down below. What is your biggest takeaway from today's game and the Mets getting 2023 spring training unraveling overall? I want to see your comments down below. Make sure to smash those buttons. Help us get to a couple hundred likes by the end of the live show, or whenever you're watching this on replay. Really does mean a lot, as again, we have a lot of big things in store. If you like post-game content like this, we'll be having special guests entering the post-game shows throughout the regular season too. We did over 100 post-game shows last season. We're going to do at least 100 this year throughout the 162, including spring train. So I hope you guys can be a part of the ride as we're growing something truly special here of the WardyNYM family over the past couple years since we started the channel in December of 2020. Let me get to some comments here in a minute. Before I do, I'm going to just briefly look through exactly what the pitches were. Like Brooks Raley, for those that are wondering, his arsenal today. Won't harp on Max because you know his arsenal by now, but Raley, heavy with the sinker at 45% of his arsenal. Then you have the cutter, the slider, the changeup at the four seam. The sinker, however, at 45% of his arsenal today. He had himself topping out velo-wise. Let me see here. He was averaging, he was on average a 76.8 mile per hour, so 77 miles per hour with the sinker. With the cutter, it was not available. I don't know why. It's just not. Sliders around 80 miles per hour. Changeup and four seam not available, I guess, because it was only one pitch. They weren't tracking them all. Tommy Hunter looked good with the cutter, the slider, the sinker, changeup. Two, again, mid 80s on the off speeds, and then on the normal stuff with the sinker and the cutter, around low to mid 90s there, 91 to 93. Elijah Hernandez, again, four-seam fastball, slider, changeup, sinker. Elijah didn't have a great outing today. If we look back on his numbers again, he's someone that we're going to watch because he's competing to be a lawman in this Mets bullpen. However, It's going to be an uphill battle, especially when you have guys even like Joey Flacco, Joey Lucchesi, really looking to crack this Mets bullpen in one way, shape, or form. Eliza had 2 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run. Pardon me, was that 1 earned run, 2 walks, and a strikeout. Then we go a little bit further here. I want to look at Sam Coonrod curveball, which is nice. He averaged 82 miles per hour, four-seam fastball, averaging 97 miles per hour. Yeah, he's touching a lot of heat on the gun, which is Sam. If he gets the control right and that location good, thanks to Jeremy Hefner, Sam Coonrod is another sleeper to keep an eye on as he's trying to crack this bullpen. Sinker, 96, 97 miles per hour. Slider, 92. Changeup, 89. A lot of velo, a lot of life on those pitches from Coonrod. It's just all about location for him, however, but he looked good today. John Curtis is the big guy here. 95 miles per hour, averaging on his four-seam fastball, which he threw 50% of the time today. The slider at 42% of his arsenal, averaging 88 miles per hour, and the cutter, which he threw once at 92 miles per hour on the 89 miles per hour on the average. Very happy with what I saw from John Curtis. Definitely a guy to continue keeping an eye on all throughout spring as the Mets have this big bullpen battle of a lot of interesting names, a lot of guys that they either picked up off of waiver claims, signed to 1-year minor league deals, but all guys that have a different element to their game. Like, for example, Yacobonis, Jimmy Yacobonis that the Mets acquired earlier in the offseason. Another name to keep an eye on. What does he has? He has a lot of horizontal movement with that slider. Okay. So the Mets acquired certain relievers, not only because they like the velo, but they also acquired guys because they know that they can hone in their craft in one thing. So Yacobonis, you're looking heavily with the slider. Then you're looking with, other guys with, even Steven Ridings, for example, just ridiculous amount of heat on the average fastball. So it all varies on these pitchers, and that's what's fun about watching this bullpen battle. I don't think I've ever been this interested in watching bullpen battle personally throughout spring training as a fan as I am now. So it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on throughout the remainder of spring, and something you certainly know I'm going to be harping on quite a bit. But now let's get to some of your comments, guys, before we wrap up the show. Like I said, the live stream is not going to be long today. I want to make sure it's not too long, so it's for viewing pleasure, not for people in live show, but for also people on replay. Really, really does mean a lot. But again, continue smashing that like and subscribe on however you guys are watching. And again, thank you all so much for being here. If you guys have any specific comments you'd like me to address, I will surely do that now. Gigi, no, you're the man. Thank you so much for chiming in. Parada seems to change his routine with his stance a lot. It's weird. Yeah, again, he's still getting comfortable. It's funny because Parada is like quite the above average hitter in every rank that he's been in so far, from Georgia Tech in college to the minor leagues. He's going to be a high riser because of that bat to ball skills. But yeah, I see what you mean. His stance is a little wacky. Almost reminds me a little bit of Travis d'Arnaud. I mean, d'Arnaud went through a lot of phases with his stances when he was a Met. And one of the famous stances I remember with d'Arnaud, and let me know if you guys remember this, is when he would have the bat he would swing the bat like all the way around his head is how tight he would have it. It wouldn't be upright a lot of the times. He would have it like all the way, and it would be like, well, bam. And again, he had success with it, and he also didn't have success with it. So Parada is a guy that we're going to be watching to see on not only that stance, how his defense looked. Again, had a nice throw to second base to get the runner out by far. I mean, it was not even close. He clearly got him out there at second to end the game. But also, how is his at-bats going to look? Because we're going to see a good bulk of Parada, especially when we see Omar Narvaez play for Team Venezuela in the World Baseball Classic soon. And I'll actually be seeing Venezuela versus Puerto Rico this WBC when I hit Port St. Lucie, Miami. So I'll let you know how everyone's looking then when I'll be in attendance. But yeah, let me see what we got here. Wow, this is crazy. Mike Puma of the New York Post just tweeted the following. Asked about his 450-foot bomb today, Ryan Mauricio pointed out he smashed one 507-foot bomb last year for Double-A Binghamton. Wow, that's insane. Whew. Batting stance like Chris Taylor, I can see that a little bit too. Can't wait to see Beatty in the majors. Yeah, me too. I think he's primed to start the year with the Mets. I really do. I'll be surprised if he doesn't start the year with the Mets, unless he just has an absolutely shit spring out of nowhere. But I don't expect that to happen. Mauricio has the power we thought Vientos would. Vientos has power. It's just about commanding the strike zone better. And that goes for Mauricio too. Mauricio has not been great with commanding the strike zone. He doesn't take nearly as much walks as he should. And Vientos kind of finds himself in that category. Vientos just needs a shortness swing a little bit more, can get loopy at times. So, just make sure that everything's nice in the way that you want it. I wonder what Wardy would look like with pork chop sideburns. Something that you're never going to find out, thankfully, Mickey. So you keep wondering about that. That's as far as you'll get. No hat, Wardy. What's up, James? How are you, brother? Yeah, no hat. Wasn't feeling a hat today. Plus, my setup is slightly different. It doesn't really look much different to you, but I changed my computer angle now because I'm going to be setting up this massive boom of a new mic I got. So I needed to change up the desk a little bit. So that's where the hat kind of gets cut off, I realized, for the show. So I'm still going to wear the hats throughout the year because I know most of you guys probably don't recognize me at games nearly as much if I'm not wearing the patent pended black Mets hat that I've had for like a decade. Profile is looking to start that one. The only way Profile is going to get a starting job at this point is if he signs with like the Reds, and even that's not a guarantee. Colorado, maybe. I mean, like I don't know how those current teams are shaped up, but yeah, I mean, Profar betted on himself, and now he's in quite the pickle because he's like the only bat that you certainly can be productive that's out there. But I think a lot of people don't love Profar. Same reason why the Mets didn't get him is because he's been so inconsistent in his career. Very nice year with the Padres last year. 80 runs scored for Profar was great. Killed the Mets in a wild card series, unfortunately. But he's just one of those guys where he's been so inconsistent and teams they're just not in love with it. And plus, he's not great at any defensive position. Like, he has versatility, but just because he has versatility doesn't mean he has Jeff McNeil type versatility, where he's arguably a Gold Glove wherever he plays. No, it's not the case. His versatility is still key. Has speed on the bags, but nothing that's like overwhelming. And I think a lot of teams have noticed that. Max is playing with the clock. Yeah, I mean, we've seen the pitch clock on full display. He loves it, and that's great. We saw Justin Verlander pitch against live hitters today, too. JV is going to be making his spring debut, looks like, towards the end of the week in 5 or 6 days. So hopefully we'll be covering that on the channel when it happens. I fully intend to, at least. I know that this week, I do believe tomorrow, I think David Pearson pitches tomorrow, and then Jose Quintana pitches the following day. I could be wrong. It could be flip-flop, but I'm almost certain. And then on Tuesday as well, Kodai Senga is scheduled to pitch like a, sim game, something like not against an opposing team, but within the organization still. But yeah, once we get those JV debuts, even Quintana I'm excited for, but JV, Senga, guys, listen to this. Kodai Senga is touching 98 on the gun now, feeling more comfortable with the mound. He's already touching 98, guys. 90 effing 8. This is the same guy that was touching triple digits without a problem in the MPB over the decade span in which he was a starting pitcher there. So I'm excited to see Senga. Really excited. Russ, thanks so much for the donation. I know it's only been a few games, but has Alvarez played at all yet? He has. He hasn't played much. He's only had a couple at bats, but he will get plenty of starting time once WBC starts, especially because again, Narvaez will be with Team Vet as well. So at that point, Alvarez will be starting every other day on average, I'd imagine. It'll be him and Nito going back to back to back to back, if I had to guess. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Think Vientos will make the roster? I don't think he will, honestly. I think it's a little... I think there's a possibility, but I think he's really going to have to ball out this spring for that to happen. Yeah, it's tough still. Let's see. Baseball off topic. I find it funny how the baseball world gets on the Mets and Cohen for being a big spender. No one talks about the Padres doing it. Yeah, and again, the Padres are specifically doing these long-term deals to make sure they stay under a certain cap right now. That's why they're doing everything long-term. But yeah, no, they're spending. And I'm so happy that you said this. So before we end the show, let me just discuss for a minute about Manny Machado and what that means, okay? Because there was belief that, okay, in part, the Mets didn't sign Correa because of Machado being available. The Mets discussed, let me clarify something. The Mets, from all the knowledge I'm aware of, the Mets had discussions internally about Manny Machado towards the end, the latter half of their negotiations with Carlos Correa. Was Machado becoming a free agent potentially a driving factor at all in parting with Correa? No, the driving factor was always that ankle, simply put. That's why they couldn't get a deal done and negotiate properly. Machado, what would have been nice about Machado if he was available is if, say, the Mets don't get Ohtani in free agency, assuming that hits the market and doesn't sign an extension if he gets dealt anywhere. Assuming Ohtani hits the market and say he goes to the Dodgers, hypothetically, right? Machado would have been a great fallback option, but now that's not available. And again, I love Brett Beatty. I think Brett Beatty needs to be on this team, whether that's at third base for the next future, if he gets his defense right, great. Or if that's in the corner, that's fine too. Whatever needs to be done, I want to see more Brett Beatty for sure. But Machado would have been a nice fallback. And now the free agent market is just Ohtani. He wasn't a class in his own before. Now he's in a class of his own and then some. So that is really going to change things. Mets are going to be all in on Ohtani. We know that. So the only real takeaway from Machado signing that extension with the Padres is that, okay, it's Ohtani or bust for the Mets, for the Dodgers, for potentially the San Francisco Giants, for the Seattle Mariners, whoever is going to be in contention for Ohtani. It's going to be insane because that market will all be about him and nothing more. He sticks out like a sore thumb because before with Machado, there would be some teams heading into free agency being like, we just want to add one superstar, kind of like the Giants way, where the Giants lost down Judge and then tried for Correa, even though they didn't land either. The thought of landing a superstar was there. Now that lone superstar is just Ohtani. Okay. So it's going to make for a really, really interesting offseason coming up, but that's really all changes for the Mets. Machado, who seemed far-fetched to begin with, is now going to retire a San Diego Padre more than likely. And for the Mets, their eyes will be on Shohei Ohtani as soon as he's available, either at the trade deadline or more than likely in the free agent market. So that being said, and James, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone, for the kind words. Thank you, guys. That is going to wrap up the show. Again, we're not going crazy long with these post-game shows, especially for spring training games, but stay tuned. We will certainly have more extended versions as we get closer to the regular season and throughout the regular season and in spurts itself. So if you're watching a replay, make sure to let me know your thoughts down below. And for people in the live show, thank you once more. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Stay tuned for more great content. We will be back at it tomorrow, same time, same place, more than likely, as the Mets have another day game to start the week. And until then, I'll see you guys there. Have a great one, folks. As always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.